name is Aoife Dean and this is the Happy Mood Podcast. I actually just recorded another podcast in Irish because Patrick's Day is coming up and it's Seachtain na Gaeilge, and also I'm going to be in a show on RTE. It's about vegetarianism and it's in the Irish language. And I love the Irish language. I love languages in general. It would be my X-Men superpower to be able to speak every language in the world. I would love it so much. But anyways, because that was so hard, now I'm like, this is a cinch. To talk about overeating and binge eating is a cinch after that. And if you do see it come up on your Spotify or YouTube or wherever you follow me, and if you've an interest in Irish or you're improving yours, I'm certainly improving mine. If you listen to it, you have to remember that whole thing, that broken Irish is better than perfect English or whatever that saying is. But anyway, today, back to it, we're talking about that sticky situation, which, by the way, will not be a sticky situation forever, where you have just overeaten or you have just binge ate, right? And there is a different way of doing things. There is a different way of doing things at literally every point of your eating or your day or your week. And we want to do differently now to get different results. And so a huge, huge, important part of the changes to your weight, therefore the changes to your eating, will be how you react to being overfull. Like, I think that is nearly what it all comes down to. Because sometimes people will feel overfull and they'll have a normal reaction to it. Other people, say for instance, people with eating and weight issues, will feel full and they'll go on a rampage of how they're fat, they're only going to get fatter, they're a failure, they'll never change, what's wrong with them, they're useless, they're guilty, they feel shame, they feel all this stuff. So it's a very abnormal, over the top, high on the emotional scale, low on the logic scale reaction. So today we're going to be fixing a few things, right? So number one, actually this is the number one before the number one. Actually the number one before the number one is please like and follow and subscribe if you have not done already. And if you have a buddy who you know also has issues with eating and weight, please send her on an episode. That would be cool. So the first one is, right, people throw the word like binge around quite frequently, and especially with binge eating. And a lot of the time when people say binge eating, they're not actually accurate by a definition standpoint. So for binging and for overeating, what gets mixed up in the mess is that when we've disordered eating, we have a heavy negative judgment about foods and especially processed foods. So we can call overeating eating crisps and chocolate, eating ice cream. So before we get into this, right, I'm talking about when you're really physically uncomfortable, okay? So that is overeating. If you are not physically uncomfortable, well, then all we're talking about is a negative attitude and judgment. And what I work in is I work in health and I work in weight. And I had to say this to myself and to my own bully as well, that like, I care about my body, I care about my weight, I care about my health. So if my belly didn't say it's overfull, can we just stop there and stop the drama and stop the negativity? Because I clearly have not done anything wrong. If I'm not uncomfortably full, there's nothing really to think about here. There's no need for drama, concern, judgment, guilt, shame, etc. So that would be the first thing. Second thing is, right, after the binge, right, after we overeat, I suppose the first go-to thing will be like, oh my God, I can't believe I done that again. I promised myself I wouldn't do it. I'm such a disgrace. I'm such a shame, like, to myself. I'm such a disappointment. When will I change? What's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. So the first one is like, when you wake up from the binge almost, press the brakes, right? Because we are treading water above that fear now. Like, I think fear and the bully tries to like pull us down and drown us in the fear. And we're not going there, right? So you do not want to strengthen the mental pathways that you are a failure, that you will never change, that you've done something wrong, especially, like I said, if you want to become a healthy weight. If you want to become a healthy weight, if you intend to be a healthy weight in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years time, 20 years time, you can't afford to react to overeating in a highly emotional way. You just can't, because even if you woke up at your ideal weight tomorrow morning, you put on all the weight back on again. If every time your belly is giving you a signal, you freak out and use it as a reason to give yourself a personal attack. We can go straight into a high emotional reaction with zero logic. So that would be like, you'll never lose weight, you'll never change. And it's like, if you even stop, right, and think about saying that to someone else, right? Because if I told you, oh, I had a binge last night, would you be like, oh, Aoife, bad news, just to let you know, you'll never be a pound lighter again? You know, it's like, that doesn't even make sense. Or obesity is ahead of you now because you overate a lot last night. Like, it does not make sense. Like, you could be any weight you want to be this year, you know, and still have overeaten last night. Like, there is literally no game over situation. And again, with the high emotional logic, you know, we could be like, oh, slim people will never overeat. It's like, really? Are you sure about that? Or someone with a good relationship with food would never eat this much or never eat in this way. And it's like, yet again, I don't know. I don't believe you there. So we just let a lot of non-logical statements fly, like let them go through our brain without stopping them. So now we're just not going there. So you really want to be careful about the neural pathways you're strengthening in your brain. You want a successful positive outcome. So the neural pathways you're going to be building are the encouragement, the support, the moving forward, the compassion, the kindness. The next thing that you could be very tempted to do, and we have to pump the brakes on, is you could be tempted to say, that is it. Those crisps are never coming into this house again. Or that is it. Chinese is properly bad for me. I cannot order more Chinese now for the rest of this month or the rest of this year. So we can be very negative about the food. And it's like, okay, it's in our best interest that all foods are our friends. Like, no one has got eating and weight issues because they're so darn positive about food. People get eating and weight issues because they're negative about food, they're judgmental, they feel guilt, they feel shame, they feel fear, they feel anxiety. So they don't trust food. They've lots of negative opinions about even normal stuff, you know? We want to moonwalk back out of that again. Like, we're not going there. So like, as in, yes, maybe you feel sick because you ate too much Cadbury cream eggs, but you could also feel sick if you ate too much cabbage. Like, the food is not the problem and the food is not the enemy. And like I said, there is no benefits to making food the enemy. So the place you actually want to get to, which is not having any eating and weight issues, you won't be at that point because you hate certain foods so much and you've such strong opinions and strong hatred about those certain foods. The only people I've ever worked with who have really strong fear and hatred and judgment towards certain foods actually can't stop eating them. It's back to that whole thing that for your brain, all promotion is good promotion. So, and all strong emotion is pushing you in that direction, whatever it is. So hate is not the emotion or the direction you want to go in. I was kind of saying it to a client yesterday, like a lot of people that I work with, she's had a kind of long-standing unhappy relationship with food. You know, she's been anorexic, she's been overweight, she's been everything. And I was kind of like, it's kind of like I'm the marriage counselor and you and food are on the brink of divorce and I'm bringing you back to a lovely place. So keep in mind, if improving your weight is the aim here, it's always increasing the appreciation, because the cream eggs or whatever you overate, they were not the problem. Because I know, you know, there's a world, or maybe even at the very same time that you were binging those foods, someone else was delectably enjoying them in a really positive way. So it's like every food has a time and a place and a moment that it could be beneficial. So it is no benefit to us to have the black and white thinking that that's off forever. So in actual fact, maybe you don't have to like design this immediately after the binge, but I would say within the next 24 to 48 hours, start planning a lovely way back to that food, because we need to rebrand every food now as as a positive. So if the last Chinese you ate it like or like just feeling gross and feeling fat and feeling in a binge and feeling disgusting. And again, that's abuse of food. It wasn't as if you were savoring it, smelling it, tasting it, appreciating it, feeling grateful for it. It was just pure abuse. So now we want to revisit that exact same Chinese or revisit that exact same cream egg and be like, hey, sorry, I was weird with you last time. I want to be sound and normal with you now. I want to like get on like other people get on with you. And yeah, create a really positive moment with that food. We need experience behind us where if there was 50 times that we ate Chinese takeaway in a disgusting way over the course of our lifetime, we need to start now building another 50 times where we eat Chinese in a very positive way, where we're appreciating someone else cooked us dinner, fair exchange. We gave them money, they gave us a lovely dinner. It tasted nice and we used it to feel nice. People presume you're paying for it to feel nice. So, that's on us, that part, eating as much as our belly approves of and knowing there will always be more later. And, again, getting over binge eating, you actually have to tell yourself, oh, no, 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 in order to cure, this will be coming again and again. Maybe you're going to need a Chinese once a week to finally get normal with it. But there's more nice foods ahead of us, and we need there to be more of these nice foods ahead of us so that we can actually heal the relationship with them. The next thing is, don't add a second problem, right, to the first problem. So, right, say if you come to your senses again, right, and you're like, oh my God, like the empty packets in the empty box, and you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, what have I done? And like you feel so gross and full and yuck. It kind of goes back to the first one again, but like that's enough of an issue. Like that, like we've enough to deal with there, right? So the point in time is my belly's really sore now and I feel like a bit of a mess, and maybe even the place is a bit of a mess. So that's the problem, right? And so I kind of think in disordered eating, what we do, unfortunately, is we'll make an emotional problem physical, we'll make a physical problem emotional. So, like I said, at the point in time there, our belly is sore. That's the problem. The problem is we've some physical discomfort. And what we will do then is we'll add mental, emotional discomfort. We'll call ourselves a failure. We'll call ourselves that we're fat forever, whatever. And it's like, whoa, 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 why are you leaving the present to go randomly visualize and say random mean shit to yourself when that's not really the work at hand? Like the work at hand is you feel physical discomfort, and if you were taking care of anyone else, you'd be like, okay, what's the problem? Let's sort this out. Let's not add another problem to it. So like if your kid came home crying from school, you wouldn't be like, shut up and eat 6 donuts. Like, you'd be like, oh wow, let's make you feel better from problem number 1. Let's not add problem number 2. So that can be tricky for us, right? Because if we've disordered eating and weight issues, it's because we're always making everything mental and personal and emotional, and our body is being neglected in the meantime. Like the physical isn't getting a look in. So right now our poor little body needs some tending to, like as in if we're bursting at the seams and we're feeling really sick and yucky and gross and we've eaten a lot of stuff, we have to be our own mommy and we have to be like, oh, Pettine, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry you feel like that, because that's the other big misunderstanding we have with eating and weight issues, that like we're the bad guy or we're the greedy fool or we're the one with not enough willpower or whatever. And it's like loads of people get through their life and they've never experienced binge eating. I'm really sorry this has happened for you. And there's a lot of things that make us us. There's a lot of things we've been through, things we grew up with, people we grew up around, stuff we've heard, experiences, traumas. Like who knows where all of this came from, but it's not your fault. It's just really unfortunate. Like it's really unfortunate that you felt something emotional and you felt that your only option to deal with that emotion was to make yourself physically uncomfortable with food. Like that's really sad. That's really unfortunate. So instead we kind of introduce compassion, like not in a victimy way, but like in a compassionate way, like poor me, like as in if you explained overeating to some people, and I know this from it being my line of work, they literally don't understand it. Like they really, and then binge eating, people absolutely don't understand it. So poor us, really, like poor us if we've had to experience this and go through this. But like you can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created it. So it's kind of like this didn't come from like a positive, loving place. So we actually do need a positive, loving place now to come out of it. So, like, again, not making a bad situation worse. Instead, being like, I'm really sorry your evening had to go like that. And I'm really sorry you have to go to bed uncomfortable now. And I'm really sorry your belly is sore. And just be really, really kind to yourself. Because how I see this is that sometimes the bully wins, right? And the bully in our head can be like, finish all of that, eat all of that. You are so overweight now. You are going to have to do something really radical to lose this weight. So before you do something really radical to lose this weight, why don't you eat all of this first? And then it's like, oh God, it's the bully one again. And it convinced me of doing that. And now I feel gross. So again, we want to come at the whole thing with like, oh, poor me. Like, it's a pity my night went like that. How can I rescue, soothe, and improve this situation? How would I take care of someone else if they said their belly was sore? The next one, and it kind of comes back to the food one, is don't take the bait and the temptation to go planning food now, right? Because like I said, it's kind of like be in the present. The present is how you currently feel and making that better. What we do when we're neglecting our body, which is a big part of eating and weight issues, is that we'll leave the present moment and instead we'll be like, okay, what'll I do? I'll do a big food shop now tomorrow. I'll sign up to that class. I'll go for a walk every morning this week. So we go straight into planning mode. So like we can just we basically are in eating and weight issues because we just live in planning our past. And then basically our body is an orphan. No one's taking care of it right now. So don't go planning. Get back to the here and now and do a little check-in with, like, I think it's a good time as well to maybe reflect because we want to learn what caused this. So what built up to this? So I always think it's like a pressure valve, like increasing over the course of the week. And then it's like, poof. So that could be like, you're only hanging in there emotionally, but you're powering on anyway and pretending that you can without taking a proper break or without getting appropriate help or without canceling a certain plan. So part of us, or I think at least when we're healing, part of us can feel that pressure valve to a binge increasing. And now we want to have the bravery of, intervening before it builds up too much. Another classic reason for a binge, right, is that we might have wanted a Kit Kat on Tuesday and we were like, no, you're not getting a Kit Kat. And then on Wednesday, we wanted to have some of the pasta the rest of the family were having. It's like, nope, you're not having that. So a binge can also just be like a build up of little restrictions. And this is where we have a little bit of a fight with our controlling personality again, right? Because the fact of the matter is what your healthy body needs is none of your business. And what your healthy body needs and what you need to eat every week to have like a really happy diet where you're a healthy weight and everything is basically you're not going to approve of it. Because if you've done loads of diets in the past, you've a really probably disordered view of what a healthy adult person needs to eat in a day. Your exposure has maybe been about like what diets say to eat in a day, which is not the same as a healthy, happy human who's a healthy weight for themselves. So that means that it's kind of like, there's a lot of things that I don't totally love about my body. Like, as in, it wasn't great crack that I needed to wake up at 3:00 last night to go to the loo. Like, but yet again, that's none of my business. That's my bladder's point of view. And equally, I might have a lovely idea that I can live a week without chocolate, but my body mightn't agree with this. So it's the controlling now of, like I said, control comes into it twice. It's initially when we're kind of like, oh my God, I shouldn't have eaten that. And that was so disgusting and I ate too much. even at times where your belly feels perfectly fine. So that's very controlling and judgy. And then the next thing that's controlling and judgy is the fact that, like, maybe your body does need more pasta. Maybe it does need more chocolate. And all, like, what you resist persists, you know that saying? So it's kind of like you're resisting that Kit Kat just meant 4 chocolate bars on Saturday night, and you not having that pasta portion for your dinner just meant eating a whole sourdough on your own in the car or something, who knows? But like, if you know the choice is coming from a place of I'm not allowed to have it, rather than how will my belly feel in 20 minutes time, there's going to be a backlash. So for every one of your restriction choices, there's going to be a binge choice. So when we're post binge, we can do a little bit of a post mortem on where was my restriction during the week, or where was my powering through, white knuckling, even though I didn't want to do the thing, even though I wasn't happy, even though my battery was on E. When did I power through anyways? So they're all helpful questions. And this is, again, right, why I think planning is such a farce. Like, I was thinking this the other day. It is so much easier to decide that you're going gluten-free this week than have an uncomfortable conversation with your partner. And that's what people do. People are like, I'm terribly unhappy. I wouldn't be this unhappy if I was slimmer. If I was slimmer, it would fix all of my problems. So I'll go off this food and I'll buy these foods. And it's like, no, you're unhappy because you need that discussion with your boss or your partner, or you need to figure out how your week can run in a nicer way that's conducive to happiness. That's why nutrition can be such a cop out. And the next one is, so we've done the learning. And now another part of being present, I suppose, is that we're listing basically what I've had to put up with, like what I've had to feel. So my belly is bursting. I feel like I've had a lot of one type of feeling food. The way, like, say if we eat a lot of crisps or a lot of chips, that's a lot of one feeling in one go. Which is also then the lack of all the other feelings that can come from food. Or I was very, very mean to myself. I knew the meanness was like accumulating over the week and it turned into a binge. So it's like, if we compare and contrast, like, that's what happened. So what's the polar opposite of that? So what I realized for myself is that if you keep just sweeping things under the rug, you're never actually changing. Whereas we have to acknowledge what went on. We have to acknowledge the 6-day build up to a binge. We have to acknowledge that there was 4 days where we were super mean to ourselves, and we have to balance things out. So if we were 4 days of being super mean to ourselves and calling ourselves fat or whatever else, now we have to have 4 days where we're wrapping ourselves in cotton wool. And I had like a visualization of that as well, just being really, really nice to myself. And actually, on that note, right, like, getting out of eating and weight issues is a lot of like, leaving your progress, coming back to your progress, forgetting it's possible to change, remembering it's possible to change. And like, if you have the course already, the Happy Hypno Weight, like, that's nearly my first go-to thing with my clients, to just remember their potential again and remember who they are as a hopeful, positive, progressing person who has the ability to have a nice relationship with food. So we need to be reminded of that version of ourselves, because that version of ourselves exists as well. Another thing I used to kind of think about myself was start the timer, right? Because basically, maybe before post binge, we would have felt guilty and fat and wrong for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever. But if you kind of like look at your whole year, your weight, whether it's getting better or worse, will be what is the ratio of weeks you're feeling guilty and a failure and bad about yourself, and what is the ratio of weeks where you're feeling hopeful and you're growing and you're peaking, or you're tweaking and you're pivoting and you're doing all of this in your own cool way, in your own cool time, and you're moving forward, like that hopeful persona. So basically, you're on borrowed time, right? Because it's kind of like, basically, while we're in that guilt and that shame and that regret, I would say for me, it always meant I was gaining weight. The best case scenario is you're staying the same weight, but it's really unlikely you're going to be losing weight, because 95% of our habits are subconscious. So it's our beliefs driving how we feel, and how we feel driving our behaviors. So if you feel fat, you act fat, and that's kind of beyond your control. So we have to feel slim, and we have to feel the finished product. We have to feel hopeful about ourselves. So that's what I was saying about the timer, right? So it's kind of like, basically, is it 48 hours you're going to feel guilty and shame, and are you willing to give away 48 hours, or is that 48 hours of weight gain? Are you okay with that? And then basically every time we have a binge or we overeat, I'm kind of like, that's the score to beat. So if last time I was guilty for 48 hours, the score to beat is 48 hours. Next time I binge, how can I bring down the intensity and the duration of that fat feeling? Because that fat feeling has to go out of our life if we're becoming a different weight. So when we feel fat, we act fat. So we have to minimize the window that is going on. And like I was saying about comparing and contrasting what you had to put up with, what you had to feel in order to design how you want to feel. This is where, again, do not allow your brain plan food. Instead, be like, what does my belly need? Even if you have to close your eyes and count to 5 and kind of think, what does my belly need next? And maybe sometimes it will be nothing. And maybe sometimes it'll be water or green tea, but you're just checking in anyways. And you're just taking it hour by hour, no plans. You're just really like, because we're making amends now with our belly and our body, right? Because we abused it, right? We force fed it. We shoved a load of crap in that was not comfortable, that it was kind of like, I don't want this. I don't know why you're eating it. We were also very mean to food. We were very ungrateful for it. So now with our body, we're kind of like, sorry about that, body. Sorry about that. How are you doing now? How are you feeling? What do you want? Do you want some water? Do you want a break? Do you want something that feels nice in 20 minutes time? You're being very attentive now to your belly as an apology, and to kind of make amends and repair the relationship after the binge. So there we go. That's all of that. Don't forget my Happy Hypno Weight course if you don't have it already, and my Love Food program as well. They're both available at happyweight.ie. And if you haven't already, sign up to my newsletter on happyweight.ie as well. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, leave a comment. That would all be cool. And I hope today was really helpful. Thanks so much. Mwah.